I wonder if the sane at death are as likely to incarnate on the other side in some way, if that really is the other side, as the sane. West of the Rockies, you're on the air. Hello.
Happy Halloween, Art. This is Jerry from Bismarck, North Dakota on KFYR 550 on the AM channel.
That's the way to do it, buddy. All right.
I have a good one for you.
Fire away.
I was attending college and living with friends in a haunted house in Fargo, North Dakota in the early 1970s.
How'd you know it was haunted?
Well, let me go on here and I'll tell you.
All right.
We all experienced the mischievousness of one or more poltergeists residing with us in the house. Every day, without exception, lights would turn on unexpectedly. The entrance door would open and close, although upon checking for visitors, there would be no one there. In our kitchen was a pantry that had a curtain opening the door. Once in a while sitting in the kitchen table, the curtain would fly straight out as if someone or something would be pulling it straight out.
That would do it for me.
One time, the hall curtain burst into flames. Fortunately, someone was there to douse the flames. I had the bedroom in the attic of this old house, and many nights I would hear someone walking up the stairs. When I turned on the light to explore the situation, there would be no one there. During lightning storms, my possessions such as shoes and books would be thrown across the room and sometimes directly at me while I was laying in bed.
You actually saw these things going through the air and coming directly at you?
I did. I felt them.
Yeah.
My dog, a golden lab, was always growling or whining at something in my bedroom. I saved the best for last. One night we all retired to our respective bedrooms for a good night's sleep. I must have been unusually tired because I fell asleep immediately and don't recall waking up all night. In the morning I woke up fairly refreshed and felt something cold beside me in my bed. I reached for it and found a butcher knife laying beside me in my bed. I wondered how in the hell a butcher knife ended up in bed with me. I first thought it was a prank by one of my other roommates, but I realized that couldn't possibly be because I always lock my bedroom door when I retire at night. I proceeded to get dressed for the day and grab my butcher knife to return it to the kitchen drawer where it belongs. As I was passing one of my roommate's bedrooms, he and his girlfriend were just exiting the bedroom, and he turned white as a sheet when he saw me with the butcher knife in my hand. I asked him what was wrong, and he began to tell me about the harrowing experience earlier that night. He said he was awakened by a person he said looked like me, standing over his bed with a butcher knife in both hands above my head, about to stab him.
My God.
He said he could not yell out and was able to move his hands back and forth, and the person dissipated into the thin air. His girlfriend had slept through the whole ordeal. One other thing, because his girlfriend was spending the night, he said the bedroom door was locked to protect their intimacy.
Have you ever had thoughts of murder?
No, I haven't. He still is a good friend of mine, and I never had any negative thoughts about him at all throughout my whole life.
But he saw you with that butcher knife in both hands, and you found the butcher knife in your bed.
And the butcher knife ended up in my bed.
All right, my friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Art.
And good night. Well, you know, that sounds like something you'd tell a defense attorney, right? He dreamed it. And I was I standing above? No, with a butcher knife? No. How did it get in my bed? Well, I don't know. I don't know how it got there. Only in those cases, there's usually a bloody mess in the other room. Not the person just waking up telling you about a dream. On our international line, you're on the air. Hello.
Hi, Art.
Well, hi there. What's your first name?
My name's Robert. I'm in Albany, New York, listening on News Talk Radio 810 WGY.
Welcome to the program.
I don't know why I'm on the international line, other than the fact that I'm 5 miles from Albany International Airport.
Well, that's because I called you, and I got to choose the line. So what's up?
Well, I had emailed you the story, and that's why you called me. And
that's right.
And if there's time, I'd like to give a little history leading up to the story, which increases the impact of it.
We'll do the best we can.
Okay. In 1974, I began having premonitions of my father's impending death. I did not believe in psychic phenomena at the time, and my father, so far as I could tell, seemed to be in perfect health, and I kept dismissing these things as some sort of odd psychological thing that would just pass. And one night I was asleep, and I suddenly woke in a cold sweat. The family cat, which had still lived in our family home in upstate New York, I was living in Manhattan at the time, I heard that family cat scream, and an image came into my mind of the cat being run over. I took that to be a very odd dream.
Sure.
Went back to sleep. And about a week and a half later, I'm visiting my parents at the home in upstate New York. And it turns out the cat hadn't been seen since that very night. And at that point, the reality of that experience hit me. And I began to wonder if these premonitions I was having about my father were true.
And those were?
Those were that my father was going to die, despite the fact that he seemed to be in perfect health.
Yeah.
Now, I had always had a phobia about learning to drive, and one of the reasons I was living in Manhattan rather than commuting was that I never learned to drive. The reason I never learned to drive is any time I sat in the front seat of a car, I kept getting this visual in my head of going through the windshield. Even when I would go to a store or be window shopping, I wouldn't get too close to the plate glass.
Right.
Because I would have this visual in my head of
By
going
then,
through the glass.
you apparently were learning to trust your intuition.
As a result of the experience with the cat, I was beginning to wonder,
Right.
and I figured better safe than sorry.
Right.
So I began to take driver's lessons. My hand-eye coordination was never the best, so it took several months before I finally passed the test. I bought a new car, got rid of my apartment in the city, moved back to the family home so that I would be there. My mother was disabled. The house was in the middle of nowhere. There was no way to get there except by car. And if anything was going to happen to my father, it would fall upon me to take care of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm there 1 week, 2 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. My father seems to be in perfect health, and I'm beginning to think I've made a first-class fool of myself.
Gotcha.
And I'm beginning to look in the New York Times, trying to find another apartment in the city, and move back and figure out how I'm going to get rid of my car. Well, one night I was working in New York City at the time. I would drive 35 miles to the bus stop, take the bus in. I would work, and that night I had a date with my girlfriend, who later became my wife, and she did something she never did before, and our relationship was 4 years duration at that point. She stood me up, and I'm waiting in the lobby of her apartment house, very swanky apartment house, and I'm waiting 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. Finally, it gets to the point where if I don't leave, I'm going to be stranded because I've got to catch the last bus.
Uh-huh.
So I catch the last bus, I drive home, I get home very late. I go into my room. I can't sleep. Suddenly there's a knock at the door. And it's my mother saying, your father's breathing funny. So I go and I rush in, and there's my father, eyes wide open, not breathing at all. And I try to do CPR. Nothing's happening. And my father died in my arms. I was 23 years old at the time, and you can imagine how traumatic that was.
I can, yes.
But had I not had this warning and not made these preparations, it would have been a far greater disaster. Now, let's flash forward 2 years. It's 1977. At that time, I had come up in the world in terms of my career. I was running the night shift of a major ed typography studio in New York City. This is back before the days of the Macintosh and desktop publishing revolution, when it actually took skill to produce typography.
Okay, we got about a minute or so.
Okay, I'll rush through the rest of this then. I'm driving on Upper Manhattan, going downtown early on a Saturday morning. I worked about a 16-hour shift.
Right.
I glanced in, I had a Pinto. I glanced in the rearview mirror, and there I see my father.
Your father?
Who had died 2 years before, with a look of urgency on his face, leaning forward with his hands on the back of my bucket seat. Suddenly there's a bang. The car careens out of control, and just like you see in the movies, time seems to slow down.
Oh, sure.
As the car flies. Now, if any of you know Manhattan, down the center island at 74th Street, there's this big concrete pillar like they have in Paris where they post community notices.
I know the ones.
Okay, my car smashed into that pillar. Front of the car was smashed in. Passenger side was bent at a 45-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't know at the time Pintos were supposed to explode in flame when hit from the rear.
That's right.
Which it didn't. At the point of impact, my bucket seat flew back, and I was lying down. Now, when the dust settled and I managed to extricate myself from what was left in my car, I saw the damage. I walked around and assessed the damage. The clip on the back of the bucket seat had broken, so I was lying down. The car was totaled, so I opened the glove box to take out the various documents in there.
Just about out of time, yes.
Well, a dollar bill that my father had given me when he was alive for luck to keep in the glove box was gone.
Take care, my friend, and thank you. And have a good life. From the high desert, this is Ghost to Ghost AM.